back to 417 Fox, your channel for the automotive DIY enthusiast. On today's video, we're going to be rolling the two-tone clones rear fenders to make room for some exciting news. If you love automotive DIY stuff, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and don't forget to turn on that bell notification so you can see the upcoming exciting videos I have in store for you. Hey, let's get to rolling these fenders. Guys, before I get started rolling these fenders, I've got an update for you on what the owner wants to do with these wheels and tires. There's a reason why we're rolling these fenders. For one, it's just a good idea before we paint the car, and another, we're going to need to fit some really nice fat staggered Cobra R deep dish 10.5s on the back with either some 285s, some 295s, hey, maybe even some 305s. This thing's going to look sick. Alright guys, if you've ever thought about going with a bigger wheel and tire size on your Foxbody, but know that you're going to have problems with your fender lip rolling, it is not that difficult to roll your fenders. Now, one disclaimer with this, I'm going to give you the tips on how to prevent chipping your paint when you do this, but there still is a high probability that that could happen. The biggest key is to take your time and keep it warm. I don't necessarily need to warm it up since I'm painting this car, but I still like to go ahead and warm it up with a heat gun that makes the steel just a little bit more pliable. So you can do this for a lot cheaper than you think. I bought this. I've done 3 sets of fenders with this one. I bought it off Amazon. There's a lot of generics out there, and this is just another one of them. Had it in 2 days with Amazon Prime. If you guys hadn't figured out yet, I do like Amazon. I know Eastwood has a really nice one that looks just like this one. I don't know if it works any different. I can tell you this one right here, and they're all pretty much copies of the same one. It works just fine, and I paid, I think, under $50 for this one. I think the one that Eastwood sells is around 80 or 90. I'm sure it's probably a little bit better quality, but this one here has worked just fine for me. So I'm going to put a link for this one down in the description for you, and you can pick that up on Amazon Prime pretty cheap, and it will work just fine for you. There's also a couple other tips that I want to show you when you're rolling your fenders, and I haven't seen a really good video out there that shows you how to roll a Foxbody fender, because one of the biggest issues with a Foxbody compared to some of your newer or modern cars is the thickness of the double wall steel here. So it is very thick and it is hard to get rolled. So I'm going to show you those tips now, so let's go ahead and get started. So the way I like to do this, we'll go ahead and get the car jacked up. If you don't have an impact, of course, you're going to go ahead and loose your lug nuts before you jack the car up. I'm going to jack it up. I'm going to go right back here on the rear subframe connectors or your rear subframe. If you don't have subframe connectors, go ahead and jack the car up and have it prepared. Alright, we got her off the ground. We'll grab our impact. I think I've only got 3 lug nuts on these wheels because I'm taking them off and on so many times right now. Alright, so what we'll want to do is, these things are universal. We're to go ahead and make sure that this is adjusted all the way to the bottom point, and then go ahead and tighten that up. You can also go ahead and get your wheel straight and snug that up. We'll get this lined up for these. Usually have to have it turned to the side to get it to fit at first. There we go. So we'll get that on there. These come with these little spacers. These spacers are concave, and they're really handy, especially if you've got closed in lug nuts. I do, but I don't have them on this car yet. You don't need to put 5 on there. You can if you want. I'm just going to put 3. Goes without being said, make sure your car doesn't have the emergency brake on, because I've done that. We don't need to tighten these very tight. Just get them snug. I'm going to turn my impact down so we can just get these things on here snug. Alrighty, so now we're ready to get started. I'm going to go ahead and move you in a little closer so you can see what the fender lip looks like right now, and I want to make sure you're getting a good angle showing what I am doing with the fender roller. Now the key to having a second jack here is, instead of adjusting this up and down, which if you think about it, I'm sure some better ones may be a little different. If you adjust this where you can slide this up and down, all you're doing is screwing that against it, and if you're putting enough pressure for these Fox bodies, that's going to slip. So I have found if I leave this all the way down and this works out to where just the right height, I have just enough suspension travel. If I put a jack under the axle to let this jack work my pressure on the fender lip as I'm rolling it, and I'll jack up further and further and then let it down as I continue to adjust. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, I've got everything set up. I've got the car jacked up here. I've got this on and tight. I've got the fender roller tool on tight. I've got the other jack positioned. I've got the other jack positioned right here under the axle, so I can start pressing that up when I'm ready. Now I did notice one thing on this fender wheel. I don't know what in the world has happened. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, there you go. That is bent down pretty far. So before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and tap that one in first, just a little bit, get that kind of straight. Yeah, that's a little better. The fender roller will get the rest of that. So now what I'm ready to do is I'm ready to get my heat gun out. And I'm going to go ahead and start working this. Now remember, you're really only going to be rolling from about right here to right here. This is not as important. You just want a nice transition between rolling this lip up and to here. So sometimes you may have to tap that in just a little bit. Alright, so the most important part now is, let's go ahead and get this lip heated up. Now it's going to take just a little while. Take your time, get it good and hot, especially if you don't want to plan on painting your car. Now I'm going to show you this just for demonstration purposes. I could go ahead and do this without heating it up, but guys, I'm going to tell you, it still works a lot easier if you go ahead and heat it up, even if you're going to paint the car. I'm going to put you on time lapse for this. Well guys, I made a rookie filming mistake. While I was recording the fender rolling video, after I finished the time lapse of heating the fender lip up, I forgot to turn time lapse off. So the rest of my video is time lapse. So what I'm going to do is, I still needed to finish rolling the other side. I'm going to go ahead and take you to that side and we'll do that, and I'll also show you the time lapse as well. I'm sorry about that guys, rookie mistake. I think I'm still going to be able to give you a really good instruction of the steps to get your fender rolled and to do it right. So I've got everything positioned. I've got the car jacked up. I've got my jack here placed right under the axle, so I can go ahead and use the suspension to put pressure here. Now the one thing that is super important when you get started is to have this straight. You want to put this right about here, because if you try to go in further, it's going to slip. always pull on it while you're rolling it back and forth. Now this one here, I've already rolled some. I was going to come back and finish it up, not on camera, but now since I am on camera, we're going to go ahead and finish it up because I didn't get this fender lip rolled in I didn't get it quite far as I wanted to compared to the other side, so I need to finish that up. But I'm going to go ahead and go through the steps just like I was starting from the beginning. So what I would do here, I always start with it at the side. I go ahead and start getting a couple of jacks, not too far, on the suspension, and about 2 pumps. That would have been right here where I'm starting to get this lip, because this lip is actually angled down just a little bit from the factory. So what you're doing is you're getting this lip more flattened, more straight, okay? So as you do that, you're going to work that back and forth. Continue to raise up your jack. Work that back and forth until you get this straight. Then go ahead and let your jack pressure down. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start slowly working your angle of the roller head in just a little bit, okay? Now you might, depending on where you're at with yours, need to roll it in or out this way, but you always want to kind of keep it where this edge is not very far past here. That way you're getting plenty of bite on here. So right here is going to work just fine for me. I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to the side, make sure this is really good and tight, and go ahead and get me a couple of jacks. And do the same thing. So now what I'm doing, while rolling this, I'm starting to take this fender lip and starting to push it in ever so slightly each time. This will take multiple passes of doing this. Keep putting pressure on the suspension as you do it without going too far. There is a fine line that you want to ride. I think it took me about 15 minutes to do the other side, just by taking my time. Then I'm going to go ahead and take it down. I'm going to say if you do it with multiple passes, it'll take you about 4 steps to get this all the way into where you need it. Then we're going to go in just a little bit more, probably another 10 degrees. Tighten that up good. Now here's where I'm going to need to adjust this in just a little bit more. There we go, that's about right. Start rolling this back and forth. We're continually taking it slow and curving it in. Go ahead and take a little more pressure. Go ahead and put a little more pressure on it. Alright, now I'm ready for the last step. And this is about where I ended this last time, because I'm looking at my angle there and it's not too far off. I'm going to let the pressure off of the suspension. Bring this into the final. I'm going to say if I was going to gauge that, that's probably around 30 degrees. We may need to take it just a little bit more, but we're going to go here since we're taking it nice and slow. I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. That should work just fine. The whole time I am rolling this, I'm always pulling it towards me. There's slack in this tool and it will let this slip off the inside of that fender lip. Add a little more pressure. A little more. As you can see, I was about to pull that in just a little bit, so I know I need to bring this arm out to me just a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and take my angle just a little bit more. Now I'm going to say I am pretty close to about a 45 degree angle right there, 40-45 degrees. Make sure this gets really good and tight. Now we're ready to go ahead and go for the final step. I'm going to bring this in just a touch. That looks like that's going to work just fine. Bring it in just a little bit more. Alright, so I'm going to take this in. I've got about a finger width in the middle between the fender lip and the wheel. that also gives me enough clearance when I'm moving this around this radius that I'm still have my wheel at that angle on the fender lip all the way around. So let's go ahead and get our pressure on it. This is the time where you're going to either almost or all the way put every bit of suspension travel that you have to get this fender lip finish rolled. Roll a little more. Work that back and forth. Continue to bring the suspension up. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to go ahead and bring my arm to me just a little bit. Actually, guys, I'm there. It's not needed. I'm there. That got it done just right. Because, guys, I'm going to tell you, your wheel doesn't rub here. It rubs right in this area right here, at the very top circumference of your wheel when it comes up into here. If it's going to rub here, that means your wheel is going so far into the fender well, it's going to be rubbing your inner quarter panel before it rubs your fender lip. So let me show you what we've got here. As you can see right here, right in the middle, there is almost zero gap. There is probably less than 1/8 of an inch now on this lip and the inner fender. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap this video up for the second time. Hey, if you like this channel, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Also, I love to read your comments, and I typically will respond to every one of them. The next video that's coming up is the Cobra Cervini's body kit. We took the time to go ahead and show you step by step how to prepare that raw plastic urethane for paint and primer. It's actually sitting right over there. So that's already actually videoed. I just got to get it edited. So that one's going to come out Sunday, and this one, it's actually Thursday today. That's how I knew I had a problem with my video, because I was getting that edited early this morning before I started work and realized, oops, I have a problem. So during lunch, I come out here and got this wrapped up, so I'll get it edited. The video is probably going to be out a little later on Thursday today than normal just because of that. But hey, that's all right. We got you the video, and hopefully you enjoy it. I'll see you guys on the next one.